Here we go, folks. It's the video that I've been referencing for the last 2 months as I lead up to the release of my new novel about Anna Katharine Green. How did Anna Katharine Green inspire Agatha Christie, the queen of crime herself? Here we go. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Patricia Meredith and I am an author of historical mysteries. My first series, the Spokane Clock Tower Mysteries, the first 3 books are available, and I'm working on the next, basically, trilogy of that series. But first, coming in May is a new novel, the first book in a new series featuring Anna Katharine Green. Now, if you've been following me for a little while and you've seen my past videos or you've read my blogs on my website, then you know who Anna Katharine Green is. But if you are not familiar with that name, then let me introduce you or reintroduce you to a woman who was the Agatha Christie of her time. Anna Katharine Green is known today as the mother of detective fiction, the way that Edgar Allan Poe is known as the father of detective fiction, specifically American detective fiction, but really of the whole genre. Basically every trope and cliche and device that we recognize today in modern mystery fiction started with her, and she also built on the people before her. So in my other videos, I talked about Wilkie Collins and how he inspired Anna Katharine Green, and then I went forward in history because guess what? He comes after Anna Katharine Green and jumped ahead to Sherlock and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and how Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was inspired by Anna Katharine Green, specifically by The Leavenworth Case, which is her very first novel, published in 1878. Now, in those past videos, I mentioned several times, I would kind of stumble across it and say something about how Anna Katharine Green also then would inspire Agatha Christie. So here is my entire video about how Anna Katharine Green inspired Agatha Christie. Now, if you want to hear about my favorite Agatha Christie novels of all time, definitely check out the video that I did earlier. I gave you a lot of options to start with. However, if you read mystery, you've probably heard of Agatha Christie and you're probably familiar with her books. I will try not to give anything away, of course, about her books today because I'm a mystery author and I don't like giving away spoilers. However, I will be going into how Anna Katharine Green, the mother of detective fiction, the Agatha Christie of her day, who has since been forgotten, inspired Agatha Christie to write what she did and become who she is and who we know today. So where did I first discover Anna Katharine Green? Well, it shouldn't be surprising that I even discovered her with Agatha Christie. So in one of my favorite Agatha Christie novels, it didn't make it into my favorite video, but it's definitely one of my top favorites. It is called The Clocks, and it was published in 1963. And in it, Christie has her own renowned detective, Hercule Poirot, who is one of my favorite all-time detectives ever. He refers to the Leavenworth case. He is having a conversation with someone, and they're discussing the great mystery authors of their time. And this is by 1963, so Anna Katharine Green has passed away at this point. But she is still a name on everybody's lips, even Christie's. And so here in 1963, we have Poirot saying, "The Leavenworth case is admirable. One savors its atmosphere, its studied and deliberate melodrama. Those rich and lavish descriptions of the golden beauty of Eleanor, the moonlight beauty of Mary. And there's the maidservant, Hannah, so true to type. And the murderer, an excellent psychological study." So right there, I read that and I thought, the Leavenworth case. I have heard of that. I feel like I've heard of Anna Katharine Green, and I thought it would be fun to go back and read some of the classics that had inspired one of my favorite mystery authors of all time. What were the books that inspired Agatha Christie, right? And so that began my journey down the wormhole that has brought me to the point of writing my own book based on the Leavenworth case and Anna Katharine Green and her writing. And I can't wait to tell you more about it. After I came across the Leavenworth case in The Clocks, then I picked up Agatha Christie's autobiography. Now, her autobiography, I own it in both ebook and in physical. I first had it as an ebook, and I bought it that way so that way I could do a search for the Leavenworth case and for Anna Katharine Green, because I had read in an article that mentioned, while I was going down the wormhole and figuring out who this Anna Katharine Green and Leavenworth case were, I found an article saying that Agatha Christie had mentioned it in her autobiography. So I picked up her autobiography. I had always wanted to read it. I definitely recommend it. If you are an author or just a fan of Agatha Christie, this is an incredible book written by herself, about her writing process and her entire life leading up to and including all of her publications. It's a fantastic read. It was published in 1977, so it's towards kind of the end of her life. And so you have her looking back over the events that have led her to who she was at that point in time. She's already the queen of crime in 77. It's amazing. She published 66 novels, 14 short story collections, 4 plays. Incredible woman. So I did a search in the ebook version for the Leavenworth case, and I couldn't find it. And I was like, okay, maybe she mentions her by name. So I typed in Anna Katharine Green. Couldn't find it. Now, Anna Katharine Green, her middle name comes in many different spellings, depending on where you find it. The official spelling is K with a K and with an A. Katharine. But you can find it with a C, you can find it with an E. It's all sorts of different. So I tried all the different versions of spelling. I tried just Anna. I tried just Green. I tried Anna Green. I tried her by her married name, Rolfs. I tried that. And I couldn't find it anywhere in the autobiography. So I was like, well, I want to read it anyway. So I started reading it. And while reading it, I came across it. So here's the thing. It's misspelled in the ebook version, and it's misspelled different ways. So in the ebook version, when I came across it, it's spelled it's the Leavenworth case. So she never mentions Anna Katharine Green by name, but she mentions the Leavenworth case, and it's spelled Levenworth. And Leavenworth is correctly spelled like this, Leaven. Okay, so I was like, oh, so it's misspelled. Well, then I picked up a physical copy. And lo and behold, I flipped to that section because now I know where it is in the ebook, so I could just find it really easily. But I'd much prefer to read by print. And it's Leavenworth case spelled with an A. Right there. Leavenworth case. So, all publishers make mistakes. It's all good. So if you go to look for it, that's how you're going to find it. So if you have a physical copy, my physical copy, it is page 198. So if you go looking for it. So she's about this far into her life, okay? And she's talking to her sister, and this is how she says it all started. We were connoisseurs of the detective story. Madge had initiated me young on Sherlock Holmes, and I had followed hot foot on her trail, starting with the Leavenworth case, which had fascinated me when recounted to me by Madge at the age of 8. Then there was Arsène Lupin, but I never quite considered that a proper detective story, though the stories were exciting and great fun. Also, highly recommend. See this collection right here? That's my Arsène Lupin collection. Absolutely amazing. He's a gentleman thief. So if you like thieves and rogues and all of that kind of thing, they're fantastic stories. Highly recommend. There were also the Paul Beck stories, highly approved, the Chronicles of Mark Hewitt, and now the Mystery of the Yellow Room. Fired with all this, I said I should like to try my hand at a detective story. I don't think you could do it, said Madge. They are very difficult to do. I've thought about it. I should like to try. Well, I bet you couldn't, said Madge. Typical sisters. There the matter rested. It was never a definite bet. We never set out the terms, but the words had been said. From that moment, I was fired by the determination that I would write a detective story. It didn't go further than that. I didn't start to write it then or plan it out. The seed had been sown. At the back of my mind, where the stories of the books I am going to write take their place long before the germination of the seed occurs, the idea had been planted. Someday I would write a detective story. Doesn't that just give you goosebumps? And she's going to go on to become the most famous mystery author of all time. It's just incredible. Okay, so now I've come across the Leavenworth case in 2 things from Agatha Christie, and I'm getting excited, and I'm starting to research it a little bit more. So then I finally decide, okay, I'm going to read the Leavenworth case. So I grab a copy of the Leavenworth case, and I read it for the first time. Now, fair warning, I have since read it 5 or 6 times, all the way through. Yeah. So I'm pretty familiar with the story, right? But the very first time I read it, I couldn't believe it. I'm reading this section, and I'm reading a specific part of it, and I go, oh my goodness, that happened in the very first Agatha Christie book, The Mysterious Affair at Styles. And I realized, obviously, Agatha Christie was influenced by the Leavenworth case more than she even realized herself. So The Mysterious Affair at Styles is the debut novel of Agatha Christie, all right? This is the first book she ever wrote. It introduces Poirot, her leading detective, and she invents some others later, but this is her first novel, The Mysterious Affair at Styles, okay? It comes out in 1920, all right? Leavenworth Case came out in 1878. That's 42 years difference, okay? So this book has been around for a long time. Let's think about a book that was written 42 years before now. That would be the 1980s. Ooh, that's scary. The 1980s or 40 years ago. I'm getting old. So think about what books were written in 1980 that are influencing what is being written now. It's actually what we're seeing right now is a lot of that. It's like 40 years is just long enough for generations to repeat themselves and to learn from their predecessors. It's a really interesting phenomenon, but that's a whole nother story. Anyway, let's get down to the point that 42 years after the publication of this one, Agatha Christie finally gets published her first novel. And I go to read this one and I realize, oh my gosh, there are scenes in this that are straight out of the Leavenworth case. She was absolutely influenced. All right, so here's what I read in the Leavenworth case. Now, if you have read The Mysterious Affair at Styles, let's see if you notice, if you're like, yes, I remember that scene in Mysterious Affair at Styles. I will get to that. I promise it doesn't give everything away. It is a major turning point, but it's not going to give anything away in Mysterious Affair at Styles. You will still be able to enjoy it, even if you've never read it. It is also currently in the public domain, so it is available everywhere. So definitely go pick up a copy. Actually, both of these are in the public domain, so go pick up a copy. All right, in the Leavenworth case. Hastily complying, I brought 3 or 4 strips of ragged paper and laid them on the table at his side. I immediately bent over the torn and discolored scraps with great anxiety. They were 4 in number and appeared at first glance to be the mere remnants of a sheet of common writing paper, torn lengthwise into strips and twisted up into lighters. But upon closer inspection they showed traces of writing upon one side, and what was more important still, the presence of 1 or more drops of spattered blood. This latter discovery was horrible to me, and so overcame me for the moment that I put the scraps down, and turning towards Mr. Gryce, inquired, "What do you make of them?" "That is just the question I was going to put to you." So then they piece all of the bits together, and it makes a complete letter, and it reveals something about the case that's important in the Leavenworth case. Now later, we get to the murderer. And the murderer is explaining, how he did it, right? Because that's what murderers do at the end of mystery novels. And again, it's one of those tropes that is common after the Leavenworth case. So a lot of other things also, but let's stick with that right now. So the murderer is explaining what he did with the letter and why they find it where they do in the coals, okay? He says, "The problem of the letter and the key had solved itself also. Hide them I would not try to. Instead of that, I would put them in plain sight, trusting to that very fact for their being overlooked. Making the letter up into lighters, I carried them into the spare room and placed them in a vase." So, lighters. What is lighters? What are lighting paper, right? So what they would do is scraps of paper, right? You've always got scraps of paper around your house. This is brilliant. I'm going to make these to go with our fireplace once we get it set up, okay? So scraps of paper, and they would just tighten them up into these long strips, okay? And then you use those to light your fire, right? You could take the flame out of this fire and then carry it over and use it to light another fire in another room. So it's a very efficient way of using lighting paper, right? Or you would light it in the fire and then use that to light your lamps at night, right? Your candles, your oil lamps at this time, that sort of thing, okay? That's what lighting paper is. What more brilliant way to hide a letter, right, than to just tear it up and turn it into lighting paper and stick it right there. It's right there. The letter that they need is right there. Now, does this sound familiar to anybody? Anybody read The Mysterious Affair at Styles? Because watch this. So, if you know Poirot at all, you know that he loves to straighten things. Most of his life is spent straightening objects, okay? Now, this is our first introduction to him, so it's not as obvious of a thing yet to readers, right? But it is a very common thing that Poirot will do, and it is incredibly crucial to this first story that that is something that he does. It's one of those, I bet she gave him that aspect, which would carry through all of the novels as being part of Poirot's who he is, right? Simply because she planned on using this idea, okay? So, first part. Poirot had walked over to the mantelpiece. He was outwardly calm, but I noticed his hands, which from long force of habit were mechanically straightening the spill vases on the mantelpiece, and they were shaking violently. Okay, so spill vases is the same as a lighter vase. So it's the same thing, it's just a different word because she's British. A document of some kind. Without doubt, possibly the scrap of paper Dorcas saw in her hand yesterday afternoon. It is destroyed. But is it destroyed? Is there not yet a chance? We must leave no stone unturned. Okay, so we have this scene. Now, if you've been paying attention to the rest of the book, this is the second time he has straightened the mantelpiece. So now we come to the end, and Poirot is piecing all the bits together for Hastings, who of course wasn't following along quite with what the murderer was saying and what Poirot was saying, and so now we have Poirot explaining how he did it. Now I promise this isn't going to give anything away. I know it's at the end of the book, but listen. Tell me if this sounds familiar. Where can he hide this terrible slip of paper? The contents of the waste paper basket are kept, and in any case are sure to be examined. There are no means of destroying it, and he dare not keep it. He looks round, and he sees... What do you think, mon ami? I shook my head. In a moment, he has torn the letter into long, thin strips, and rolling them up into spills, he thrusts them hurriedly in amongst the other spills in the vase on the mantelpiece. I uttered an exclamation. No one would think of looking there, Poirot continued, and he will be able, at his leisure, to come back and destroy this solitary piece of evidence against him. Then all the time it was in the spill vase in the bedroom, under our very noses? I cried. Poirot nodded. Yes, my friend. That is where I discovered my last link, and I owe that very fortunate discovery to you. To me? Yes. Do you remember telling me that my hand shook as I was straightening the ornaments on the mantelpiece? Yes, but I don't see... No, but I saw. Do you know, my friend, I remembered that earlier in the morning when we had been there together, I had straightened all the objects on the mantelpiece, and if they were already straightened, there would be no need to straighten them again, unless, in the meantime, someone else had touched them. So it is a crucial turning point in this book, and it is straight out of the Leavenworth Case. Now, just to clarify, I am not saying that she took something straight out of one book and put it in her own, okay? I am not saying that, and I'm not saying that about Anna Katharine Green either. I'm not saying that she's completely innocent of using other people's ideas, right? There is no new idea out there, okay? That's just a fact of life. People are inspired by other things that they read, right? What I'm trying to point out is that Agatha Christie, the Queen of Crime herself, was absolutely, incredibly influenced by the Leavenworth Case specifically and by Anna Katharine Green's writing. So here is a forgotten female that should no longer be forgotten, because if Agatha Christie remembered her and was influenced by her, then we too should be looking her up and reigniting the passion that was love of Anna Katharine Green's novels. All right, so moving past the Leavenworth Case, Anna Katharine Green goes on to write 36 other books. So she greatly influenced authors, not just with her first novel, but everything that came after as well. So another crucial way that Anna Katharine Green inspired Agatha Christie is with a certain character. So in 1897, Anna Katharine Green invents the very first female spinster amateur detective. That's right, the first female detective in literature written by a female author was Anna Katharine Green's Miss Amelia Butterworth. Now, Miss Butterworth is hilarious, and I absolutely love her. And she first appears in That Affair Next Door in 1897. 33 years later, we get Murder at the Vicarage, which is the first Miss Marple mystery. Now, I do personally own one of my favorite Miss Marples, and you'll see this in the other video if you go watch it of my favorite Agatha Christie's. A Murder is Announced is one of my absolute favorites. So if you're looking for an introduction to Miss Marple, I highly recommend this one. There are so many wonderful adventures with Miss Marple, but it all traces back to Miss Butterworth. And if you're looking for a first novel by Anna Katharine Green, I actually would recommend that one over The Leavenworth Case. The Leavenworth Case, you'll get into it and you'll be like, it's so tropey. It follows all those conventions that I'm familiar with detective literature. And the fact is, it's tropey because she's the first one who's doing it. And so everybody copied her afterwards, right? Including Sherlock and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, right? So, and you'll see that in that video. But she's also building on the things that Wilkie Collins had done and Poe and everybody who came before her as well. But she's still the first female author of full-length detective fiction and the first to publish under her own name. But that's a whole nother thing. The point is, if you're looking for an introduction to Anna Katharine Green, I would highly recommend picking up That Affair Next Door. It's a little bit more funny. It's a highly entertaining read. If you're really paying attention to who Miss Butterworth is, you're in her mind, it's first person. It's just a little bit of a different story. Her main detective, Grice, is also in that one, so don't worry, you still get a little bit of Grice, who I absolutely adore. Especially if you're a fan of Sherlock, you will fall in love with Grice. So, again, watch that video. But Miss Butterworth is a wonderful introduction because she's just a little bit looser written, I guess. I don't know. I found it to be a very entertaining novel. Again, there are lots of things that happen in that novel that you're like, I think I've read something like that in another book. It's really interesting. Every time I pick up an Anna Katharine Green novel, I have found something that has made me think of a modern mystery that I have read where I have seen a similar thing used or a thing done. So, and if you read enough mystery, frankly, you're going to find that all across the board, right? There's nothing new. If you want to learn more about Anna Katharine Green, be sure to hit that subscribe button and like button below, so that way you'll be notified the next time I post a video about Anna Katharine Green. I'm trying to do one a month, leading up to the release of my book, A Deed of Dreadful Note, in May. I don't have a definite release date yet, so if you follow me, you'll be the first to hear. Be sure to sign up for my newsletter at my website, patricia-meredith.com, and you'll also find blogs and more information about Anna over there. You can also follow me on Instagram and Facebook as @pmeredithauthor, just like my tag here on YouTube. And there, again, you will be notified when I post blogs and different things. Be sure to add my book, A Deed of Dreadful Note, or follow me as an author on Goodreads. Again, you can find me at goodreads.com/pmeredithauthor, or just search for Patricia Meredith and you'll find me right there. I am the one writing mystery books, not the other one. But be sure to add my book there, because then whenever I update it and I add a release date and a cover and more information, things like that, then it will notify you. So that way, hopefully you will be kept up to date. I do plan on posting videos even after the release, because I am just fascinated by Anna Katharine Green, and I have so much history and so much research that I have done since 2019 when I wrote my first version of this book. And I have so much to share with you about what I have learned and how much she has influenced me as an author and influenced the mystery genre as a whole. So I look forward to sharing that with you. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful weekend, and thank you so much for joining me.